Good evening and welcome to tonight's propaganda brought to you by Our Panic. The midterm elections are coming up on Tuesday and polling is predicting a major red wave. Not good for the New World Order, might be good for you, but who cares about you? Now, despite big tech's transparent collusion to censor false narratives around the midterm elections, which is all of them but ours, and our relentless devotion to manipulating your mind, you peasant citizens seem to be thinking for yourselves, so it's not looking good for us. But can we save our communist takeover that we call a democracy, or will actual democracy win big? Well, we're not giving up yet. So tonight we're bringing you a special midterm election rundown on all the key races. Spoiler alert, vote blue no matter who. Let's dive in. Probably the most entertaining race to watch in all the midterms is Fetterman vs. Oz for the Senate seat in Pennsylvania. The race is neck and non-existent neck. Oz is a physician and former talk show host. Fetterman's credentials include looking like what would happen if a tumor had sex with a hoodie. And that's what it's still doing. Now for Pennsylvanians, if you want to end inflation, then Fetterman's your guy. Here's what he had to say about what's causing inflation.
What do you think the biggest cause of inflation is, and should the Biden administration be doing more?
No, I just do. I think that simply is also, let's talk about the trillions in massive tax cuts to the corporate tax structure as well. True. Trillions of dollars that have added to the deficit. And now they still want to support those as well. True. I think in terms of being very serious about addressing inflation is making sure that those rates are brought back into a line with what they should have been, where they're able to fight the deficit.
A true economics genius. With an understanding like that about what's causing inflation, you can be certain that he has an equally well thought out idea on how to fix inflation. And when likely voters for Dr. Oz have been asked, what makes you likely to vote for Dr. Oz? The most common answer has been, he's at least not Fetterman. Now, as the most trusted persistent pest in your life, in my expert political opinion, this Senate race should not be decided by a vote. This one is beyond that. I think the only way to decide it is they should give Dr. Oz a mission. If he can medically cure all that's wrong with Fetterman, then he gets the Senate seat. But if he can't do it, then the Senate seat goes to Fetterman. It's the only fair way to do it. And moving along to Utah. Incumbent Republican Senator Mike Lee is being challenged by Democrat Evan McMullin, who is running as an independent. In a move to bring more honesty to how voters are deceived, McMullin is endorsed by the Democratic Party of Utah. He's paid $1.6 million to Democratic firms for running his campaign and uses a Democratic fundraising platform. Now what's happening here certainly isn't a leftist politician who realizes that voters are awake to the destructive results that leftist policies have created and therefore don't want to vote for someone who will simply make things worse, and then labels himself an independent to try to trick voters into thinking he's someone who he's not. Yeah, it's definitely not that. And the reality surrounding McMullin can easily be explained by understanding that it's probably something else. Mike Lee, on the other hand, is transparently running as a Republican and therefore can't be trusted. He's got the crazy idea of wanting to rein in the power of the federal government, limiting it only to the responsibilities specified in the US Constitution. And trust us, that's not good because it would make it very challenging for a tyrannical regime to function. Why isn't the whole Constitution being censored yet? Furthermore, Senator Mike Lee believes big tech should not be able to censor and control the speech of Americans, and he unconstitutionally believes that the Constitution unlocks human potential. Well, not if McMullin has anything to say about it. But despite McMullin leading the way in deception, he's unfortunately not leading the way in the polls, with one poll showing Senator Mike Lee leading by 10 points. So people of Utah, put down your skis, and if you have any dead relatives, tell them to get out and vote for Independent Evan McMullen. The Democratic Industrial Complex will thank you for it. And what's happening in Arizona? Well, in the Arizona governor's race, Katie Hobbs is clearly leading the way as she is down in the polls by 11% under Republican candidate Kari Lake. Running on a pro-virtue signaling about diversity platform, Hobbs is well respected for her strong stance against racism. She's so against racism that she's committed it. And in fact, she hasn't just committed it, she's been convicted of it. Twice. Katie Hobbs has a strong track record of being convicted of racial discrimination in the workplace. But in the lawsuits she's lost, at least she didn't have to pay for the damages. Arizona taxpayers did. So when it comes to racism, nobody will be better at ending it than someone who commits it. Hobbs is your gal. Kari Lake, on the other hand, seems completely unwilling to be racist and instead wants to bring Arizona secure borders, keeping fentanyl and dangerous criminals out of the state and country. She wants to protect children from being indoctrinated into dangerous ideologies at school, and she wants to preserve and protect constitutional rights. Barf. Though the polls aren't in her favor, if Hobbs proves to have strong enough dominion to defy the polls and win the ticket, then she can stop dodging debates and hiding from voters out of fear of them finding out about her policies, because then she'll be able to just implement them. And in New York, the governor's race is closer than expected, with sitting governor Kathy Hochul from the Cuomo regime barely edging out Republican challenger Lee Zeldin in many of the polls. And some of the polls are showing Zeldin starting to pull ahead. In an apparent attempt to support Zeldin's campaign, in an announcement last week, Hochul urged parents to remask their toddlers. She added that children are more socialized to the idea of wearing a mask anyways. Makes sense. New York has been among the top states that people are fleeing from, probably because they want to move to states with more draconian restrictions and less rights. If Hochul manages to stay in office, she'll possibly be able to reverse that trend. And in Texas, the governor race seems to be all but over, with incumbent governor Greg Abbott pounding the human incarnation of soy, Beto O'Rourke, into submission. And in addition to being a fan of stripping for children, Beto also wants to strip Texans of gun rights, which happens to be the #1 thing not to tell Texan voters. Can't believe it's not working for him. You might remember Beto from last spring when, following the tragic shooting at Uvalde School, he made the strategic decision to interrupt a press conference Governor Abbott was giving to grieving family members and grieving community members in order to politicize the tragedy for his own gain. Take a look.
Sir, you're out of line. Sir, you are out of line. Sir, you are out of line. Please leave this auditorium. I can't believe you're a sick son of a bitch that would come to a deal like this to make a political issue.
His strategy worked masterfully to make the unlikable candidate even less likable, which for some reason kind of works for us. Nonetheless, if Beto and his high levels of estrogen can somehow get into office, he would be the first Texan governor to also hold the state record for lowest bench press. And in the race for Georgia governor, it's looking good for current governor, Republican Brian Kemp, as he leads conspiracy theorist Stacey Abrams by 8 points in recent polls. Stacey Abrams won favor with Americans when she recently drew on her strong body of scientific knowledge to claim that fetal heartbeats aren't real. Have a listen.
There is no such thing as a heartbeat at 6 weeks. It is a manufactured sound designed to convince people that men have the right to take control of a woman's body away from her.
I like how her mind works. She thinks fetal heartbeats are a conspiracy theory? She puts me to shame. I'm just over here thinking the Earth is flat, space is fake, birds aren't real because they're obviously CIA robots, but she thinks heartbeats are fake? But what if she's right? What else are they trying to trick us about? But if Georgia voters can manage to defy the odds and get Abrams into office, they'll also undoubtedly have all their economic concerns put to rest, as Abrams is the first person in the history of the world to conclude that abortion is a viable way to solve inflation. Godspeed, Georgia. And in traditionally psychotic blue Oregon, Republican candidate Christine Drazan is surprisingly putting the heat on Democrat Tina Kotek, who's the former House Speaker of Oregon. During the campaign, Kotek has faced major criticisms for the rising crime rate in Oregon, which I don't understand. They defunded the police, so how could this be happening? But the Oregon plot thickens, with former state senator Betsy Johnson running as an independent in the race. She appears to be gaining support from would-be Democrat voters, which strengthens the Republican Drazan's chances. Right now, the polls are showing a toss-up, which is alarming because Oregon is typically considered an easy win for Democrats. It's almost like people are waking up to the realities of the Democrat Party. I think we'll be able to get them to go back to sleep. However, what you need to know is none of these three ladies used to be men. Them even trying to run for office is damaging to women's rights. And in Florida, Charlie Crist doesn't even seem to have a hope in hell of defeating Governor DeSantis. Our smear campaigns on him apparently don't work. They kind of do the opposite. But we'll keep trying. Moving along to Michigan. Sitting Governor Gretchen Whitmer, who appears to be with the Communist Party, holds about an 8-point polling lead over Republican challenger Tudor Dixon. If we knew what a woman is, we would say that Gretchen Whitmer is the female version of Gavin Newsom, who is always lovingly admired when he's surrounded by mirrors. But Governor Whitmer has faced strong criticism over the past couple years over her harsh lockdown policies that helped protect Michigan residents from freedom. And her policies worked. We can accurately say that no one died from freedom during her reign. And recently, in an uninteresting turn of events, in support of Whitmer, former president and probably current president Barack Obama came out to campaign for her. During the Obama rally, the biggest takeaway for voters was getting to see Obama have a minor meltdown when people in the crowd broke out into an FJB chant. Early polling suggests that Obama probably agrees with her sentiment. That's it for a midterm election special mind manipulation report. Remember the feeling of emotional coercion that intimidates you into voting blue no matter who, and keep in mind how we label anyone who doesn't a dangerous extremist. You don't want to be one of those, now do you? Happy voting, as long as you vote the way we want you to. Good night! What's up, my freedom-loving friend? I want to let you know I've got new designs in my Freedom line of merch, as well as all the classics, including Defund the Thought Police. You can grab your freedom-loving designs only at awakenwithjp.com. Enjoy. I would like to thank the sponsor of today's video, Bond Charge. Not only do they make my favorite evidence-based blue light blocking glasses, but they also make my favorite EMF radiation blocking devices on the market. Let's hear more. Okay. We're all fish swimming in EMF radiation waters. Now, we're probably not ever going to escape it, but we can finally do something to take control and block some of the EMF radiation if you're someone who, like me, doesn't like being the science experiment of what happens to people when they're swimming in constant EMF radiation. Now, I want to do something about it, and Bond Charge helps me. Bond Charge makes a full suite of EMF radiation blocking devices. I want to tell you about a couple of my favorite. First is the harmonizing sticker, which I always have on my phone, laptop, and router, and other EMF generating devices. This is a very quick and inexpensive way to help neutralize the harmful ions from EMF radiation so you can be better protected. I also want to tell you about Bond Charge's EMF radiation blocking phone pouch. The Faraday case has been shown to block up to 99.99% of EMF radiation up to 30 gigahertz. What does that mean for you? It means you get to better protect your immediate surroundings from EMF radiation coming from your phone. It also protects you and your phone from cyber attacks and EMP pulses, which is something I actually care about. Not on my watch, tyrants. If you want to do a little something extra to take matters into your own hands, check out Bond Charge's full suite of EMF radiation blocking devices only at bondcharge.com/JP. And while you're there, use a discount JP to get 15% off. Enjoy.